Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be standing by a few minutes, and we're waiting for our two social media platforms to now populate. So those of you on YouTube, I want to welcome you, and those of you on Facebook, we're going to welcome you. So we're going to be standing by a few minutes, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to begin. We're going to begin our broadcast here at 6:30. So we're live here from New Jersey, and we are live streaming across the country. In fact, I've gotten some emails from as far away as Great Britain. So we do have people who are watching, and we're going to see exactly what we're going to be doing as we move forward with regard to many of the problems that we're facing in this country from coast to coast. So we're going to stand by a little bit. We do have people now beginning to populate here on YouTube and on Facebook Live. So as we're waiting and anticipating a good crowd, as we have always every week, I'd like to share with you that we do have our store. It's open. It's rogersforamerica.store. And we've got some publications and books in there. In fact, we're going to have a lot of news commentaries and magazines. We're going to be filling up and stocking up that store with information and intelligence that you would need in order to truly get educated about what is going on in this country and what we need to do in order to prepare for what is coming. But in the meantime, many of you have asked me and you have talked about what we need to do to help our police officers. Well, we're working on that from a legislative perspective, but what they do now need is to know that you support them. And you could be very personal and upfront with them. Here's what we've done. We have produced these here. These are police officer survival kits. This is a booklet about 10, 12 pages with Proverbs and Psalms, words of comfort from the Bible for police officers and their family members, law enforcement officers on all levels of government. We have a little pamphlet in there called The Roman Road and also Hope for America. So you could get this packet. You get 5 of these, all right? They come in packets of 5. Just go to our store on rogersforamerica.us. We're asking you to purchase these. I think they're about $7, something like that, for 5, and bring them to your local police station, or do what my wife and I have done. We carry these with us wherever we go. I got a stack in the car, and whenever we see a police officer, for example, I was in a 7-Eleven about 2-3 weeks ago, and there were a couple of cops in there. So I introduced myself, shook their hands, and I gave them this. And it's easy for them to take because it's small and they can put it in their pockets. So this is something that will last for police officers. And those of law enforcement, whether you're a state trooper, Customs, Border Protective Service, whatever, we've actually had to make 100 more. That's how many people are purchasing these things. And I know when one person orders 50, 25, 50, 75, they're actually buying these to give away. And that's exactly what we're asking you to do. Now more than ever, our law enforcement officers need our help prayerfully, as well as what we're going to be doing very shortly. And I'm going to announce it to you within the next few minutes. So it's now about it's 6:30. So here we go, folks. 6:30 p.m. here on Rogers for America, the campaign for America. Now, a lot's been happening. First of all, let me just start off by saying we're all very grateful that General Flynn, his whole situation, Lord willing, is now over. The swamp got drained. They got caught. They couldn't prosecute this guy. They should have never, ever charged him with anything. And the way it works, folks, the FBI brought him in. They intimidated him. They used this kid as a weapon. Either you go to jail or your kid goes to jail. So to prevent your kid from going to jail, you need to admit, you need to confess to things that you didn't do. Now, what father would not do that to save his child? So you know what? I give General Flynn credit. He fell on the sword for his son. And now, thank God, the system so far has worked. And hopefully that escapade is over with him. The next person that's got to be set free from the shackles of the swamp, from the corruption, from the Dem socialists is Roger Stone. So let's see where all this goes. And hopefully it'll all turn out the way we want it to turn out. And that is making sure that political prisoners, imagine we're talking about political prisoners in the United States of America, are set free. The political prisoners are conservatives, and those imprisoning them are the Democrat radical left-wing lunatics. as well as communists and socialists. And by the way, speaking about communists and socialists, folks, a letter did go out to the individuals that are occupying Seattle, and it was entitled "Dear Comrades." Now that salutation says it all, "Dear Comrades," and they're apparently urging them to leave the area because it's unsafe. Well, sure, it's unsafe. It's been unsafe since those individuals occupied that area. In my view, and I'm not kidding, a big fence should be put around that and make it into a prison. A big fence. They should put up a 12-foot fence around that entire 6-block area and turn it into the CHOP prison and keep them in there. Because they endanger the lives of police officers. They cost the life of a 19-year-old black kid, another one wounded. These are anarchists, they are socialists, and they are communists. And those who support them, like the mayor of Seattle, she ought to be removed from office. In fact, she ought to be charged with some maybe malfeasance or misfeasance. Since they're finding all kinds of laws to apply to us, there's got to be something in there that we could apply to the mayor of Seattle. Got to be something in there. All right, I'm going to share something with you. And then I'm going to share with you and answer the question, what can you do? That's right. What can you do to begin to fight back the socialist agenda? So let's go and talk about what's happened this week. Okay. First of all, I've said all along that socialism is marching on. You know, I've said that. I sound like a broken record, but it is. And every day we come here at 6:30, something different has happened in the advancement of the socialist agenda in the United States. So here's what's happened, folks. It began with the removal of statues. Think about what I'm going to say now. The removal of what statues? Of Confederate statues. Robert E. Lee, Andrew Jackson. So all of these Confederate statues, they began to take down. They put a rope around the statue's neck. They tore it down. They burned it. They urinated on them. They did everything imaginable to these statues. Confederate statues. Then they decided, well, that wasn't enough. Then they went and they began to remove Union statues. They removed the statues of the very people who helped free the slaves. That included General Grant. That included Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States. Then they decided to go after those in a revolution, Washington and Jefferson. So they are methodically removing any sign of American history. Now, the sad part about this is, folks, I did speak to someone who spoke to some young people who are watching all this unfold. So a conversation came up about General Grant, General Sherman, the Civil War, basically, Gettysburg. They're speaking to young people about this. And the young people were like deer in the headlights. They had no idea. And I'm not talking about one or two young people. I'm talking about people who are seniors in high school and freshmen or sophomores in college. These kids had no idea. No idea. Where's Gettysburg? One was asked, who's Grant? Who's Lee? Folks, I got to tell you something. If this wasn't serious, we'd be laughing at this right now. But it goes to the point that I was making last night and all week, that our educational institutions in this country have been so corrupted for so long that these young people in this generation, as Vladimir Lenin said, just give me one generation and I'll destroy their entire country. They're the ones that have little or no knowledge of American history. We are more interested in this country in teaching our children about sex than about civics. We're more interested in teaching our children about the virtues of socialism, the accomplishments of Stalin, of Lenin, of Russia, the Soviet Union, and other communist countries than we are about capitalism, about free markets. That's what has been happening in our country. So when you ask the question, why is it that they're going after these memorials, these statues of American history? It's because they don't know. They have no idea. And they have no idea because the communists and socialists for years have been infiltrating our American system. So we went from statues, right? American history statues. Statues on government property, folks, your property and mine. Then they decided to progress themselves. They advanced themselves to statues on the property of religious institutions. They are now in the process, and I think already it's happened, statues of Jesus are being torn down from Christian churches. Private property, folks. They're being torn down from Christian churches. They're being desecrated, statues of Jesus in cemeteries. Statues that people go to and pray before on their knees. Really unbelievable. Then they went from the religious statues, folks. They went to war memorials. They're desecrating war memorials. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq. Imagine being the parent of a kid who died in one of these wars, gave his life. Imagine being a 90-year-old World War II veteran going to a cemetery to just pray and to worship God and pay homage and respect to your fellow countrymen who died. And you go there and you find, like they did in North Carolina, on the names of World War II veterans, a hammer and sickle and sprayed in red. What, posters on the gravestones recruiting people into the Communist Party? But this is what they've done. Desecration of cemeteries, of war memorials, Catholic cemeteries, Jewish cemeteries, Catholic and other Christian houses of worship, Jewish houses of worship. I got to tell you, folks, I spoke to a lot of my friends who are Jewish, and they're shaking in their pants. They're shaking in their pants. Because as all this is going on, in the eyes of a lot of these young people, the Holocaust never existed. Never existed, folks. It was a hoax. It was a joke. This is what young people are being told. And now we're seeing the fruits of the labor of the socialists and communists in this country for many decades, because they are insensitive to history. They are insensitive to what happened to people in World War II. People persecuted and prosecuted, killed and slaughtered in slave camps. And could you imagine young people today not understanding or knowing what the darn Holocaust was? The worst chapter, not in any country's history, the worst chapter in human history. And folks, I've got to tell you something else. I've heard people around the country make speeches and talk about the virtues of the Nazis. Folks, like I said, if this wasn't so serious, it'd be laughable. So they're teaching our children about Stalin and Lenin, and they're teaching our children about Hitler and Germany and the Nazis and all sorts of incredible stuff. But they're not teaching them about capitalism and about Patton and about MacArthur and about Truman and about Kennedy and FDR and Reagan and Washington and Lincoln and the heroes of American history. They're not talking to them about that. They're not teaching them about that. And as a result of years and years and years of frankly brainwashing them with all this anti-American stuff, we are now reaping what Vladimir Lenin said: give me one generation of American kids and we will bring their country down. Something else is going on. So we talked about Confederate statues, Union statues, removal of religious statues, desecration of war memorials, desecration of cemeteries, Catholic, Jewish, and other faiths, desecration of churches. Now they're going after stained glass windows, saying that stained glass windows with religious figures on it is an offense to them. Folks, Think about what I've been saying. Remember, I talked about the progression of what's happening to our country. First, atheism, then socialism, then communism. So the atheists are on the march with the socialists and with the communists, now attacking religious institutions. Do you think it was just a coincidence, or some graffiti artist on his own went and desecrated St. John's Church in Lafayette Park in Washington the other night, and made sure that on that church was the letters that spelled out communism? That was no mistake. Do you think it's a coincidence that when they desecrated a World War II memorial in North Carolina, that they painted in red a hammer and a sickle and then put propaganda from the United States Communist Party on some of those gravestones? Not a coincidence, folks. The enemies of this country, are on the march. And it gets even worse. You think that was the end? Oh, no, that's just the beginning. Now they're going to remove historical figures from museums. Mayor de Blasio of New York has suggested, get this, folks, that historical figures like Teddy Roosevelt, President of the United States, and I believe he was the first commissioner of the NYPD, got to be removed from the museums in New York. Got to remove Teddy Roosevelt. You're claiming that he's an offense to people. And then you get Cuomo up there saying, well, this is healthy. This is expression of free speech. This is good. It's good? It's good removing historical documents? What's next? Believe me, folks, Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, that's next. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, the mayor of New York, the governor of New York, the mayor of Seattle, the mayor of Minneapolis, and every Democrat socialist that has some sort of leadership position in this country are helping destroy this nation. And there are others. There are others, and I'll get into that in a minute. So now historical documents are being removed from museums, statues like Teddy Roosevelt and others. Nancy Pelosi has made it absolutely sure, folks, that some of the statues in the Capitol building and the rotunda are being removed. Being removed, whether you're Confederate, whether you're from the Union Army, historical statues, historical documents, the American history is being erased before our eyes. Erased. The movement to dismantle local police forces around the country is in full steam. City of New York, anti-crime units are gone. Intelligence and information gathering gone. Uniformed cops are being relegated to doing nothing. The mayor of Seattle, after she being responsible for the murder of a kid in that shop area, decides she wants the police to go back in. But when you go back in, cops, you got to be nice. You can't go in. So they took the tear gas away. They took the rubber bullets away. They took the stun guns away. So they leave the police in Seattle with a weapon called a gun. So when the police are attacked, you're not allowed to use the gun. So when they're attacked, instead of using the gun, they run. They got to run. They have no choice. It is set up to fail, folks. Now I understand tonight they've cut millions and millions of dollars from the Seattle Police Department. But there's a motive, folks, with regard to removing and dismantling and defunding local police forces. The story you're not being told is the socialist agenda is to create a national police force. A national police force, folks. Not unlike what we see in the former Soviet Union in Russia. A national police force under a socialist government. You know what that means? Do I have to paint it? Do I have to spell it out? You know what that means. And let me tell you something. I know many of you anarchists and socialists and communists, you view this. I get your mail. I get your hate stuff. If you think your support of a socialist government with a national police officer is going to render you safe, when they get through with us, as American patriots and conservatives, they're coming after you. Oh, yeah, they're coming after you. But you're lucky, because they may come after us, but they're not going to conquer us. Because I'm telling you, folks, we're going to fight. And you socialists and you communists and you anarchists, and those of you who are Democrat socialists, there are American patriots out here by the millions who are going to send you to the ash bin of history where the Communist Party is now taking residence. Believe me, we're going to do it because we're not going to surrender. So now, your national police force, and then what they've been doing all along, and there is now some success on their part in removing conservatives from any public office, from boards of education, all the way up to the Congress of the United States. And the big prize is in November. The big prize is they want to remove Republican, conservative, American patriot that puts America first, named Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. They want to remove him from the White House. If they do that, folks, game over. If Joe Biden and the Democrat socialists are elected to office and take complete and total control of the Senate and the Congress, it's game over. I'm not kidding. It's game over. And folks, it's not only me saying game over, but if some of you were tuned into Fox News last night, I believe it was Laura Ingraham who had a young lady from Venezuela on, who was pleading with the American people to get up in the fight because she saw her country disintegrate within weeks. It began with removing statues, folks, removing statues, removing history, erasing their historical documents, removing their religious artifacts, destroying their churches. It began that way. This is a young lady in her 20s from Venezuela begging the people of the United States to stand and to fight. And the reason why she is begging us to stand and to fight is because she saw it in her country. And if the United States falls, every single democracy on the face of this earth will fall. Think about it. A young lady from Venezuela, right? A young lady from Venezuela had to get on national TV and tell the American people to stand up and fight, which leads me to this. Where are the people you and I, as American patriots and Republicans elected to office? Where are they? They are just simply nowhere to be found. You got a sprinkling of a few here, a sprinkling of a few there. Where are they? They're cowering somewhere, but they're certainly not on television. Now, they did get together to work on a police reform bill that utterly failed in the Senate today. It failed, folks. So now they're going to just go back into their office and get a pen and a piece of paper, and they're going to start writing, and they're going to come off with some feel-good legislation and tell us, well, we did something. But the Democrat socialists, they're the ones that killed it. No, they didn't kill it, folks. The Republican Party leaders of this country, not all of them, but a lot of them, folks, I'll tell you what, I'm glad they weren't around during the Revolutionary War, and I'm glad a lot of them weren't around in World War II, because we wouldn't have a country today. They would have taken this flag and taken it down and put up the white flag of surrender. They just ought to be ashamed of themselves. And I know some of they, which is some of you who are elected officials, watch this broadcast. I know you do, because I get some calls and letters from Republican Party people here in the state of New Jersey. And they're cheering me on. They're saying, let's go, let's get together, let's come together, and we're going to do this. Or there are others saying, lighten up, please. We have an election coming up. We've got an election. We got primaries in July. We've got elections in November. We have to get Republicans elected to office. I agree. We've got to get Republicans elected to office. But there's going to be no country left to elect them to office too if you continue to hide and run under a rock. Look, and I'm not in the business of calling out the names of Republicans. I'd love to, boy. Would I love to? I'd love to call their names out, but I kept my word, and I'll keep my word. Thou shalt not speak evil of any Republican running for office. I won't do that, folks. That's a Reagan doctrine. It's something we have to adhere to because these people are going to be running for office. And I don't want to give the Democrats any firepower, but I'll call the party out. Why? I'm a member of the party. I'm one of the leaders of that party. Speaking all over the country on national TV, here and there, right? So based on the emails and letters and calls you are sending me, I'm speaking out, hopefully on your behalf. And I'll bet you're sending the same letters and messages to our elected officials. I'll bet you're doing that. Like I did. And you know what I got as a response? A request for a contribution to a campaign. Yep. A request for a contribution to a campaign. That's right, folks. We have going on here a campaign for America. And our campaign for America, we're not asking you for money. You're not going to get anything in the mail from me with regard to raising funds for this campaign. Maybe there'll be a time it will happen, but it ain't going to happen now. Our campaign for America is going to be campaigning for a few people, and one of them is the President of the United States of America. A few others are state representatives. But I'm going to tell you something, folks. We're going to rise up, and I'm going to tell you how we're going to do that in a minute. And so the answer to the question, where are they? Who knows? But there's a bigger question. Will they fight? Remember I asked the question a few weeks ago that will this generation of young Americans fight if a major war breaks out with China or some foreign power that wants to really hurt us? It's a shame that we've got to ask the question, will they fight? Because we've got some great young American patriots serving right now in Afghanistan, in the Mideast, all over the world, fighting for this country. And there are not many of them. So those college kids that are marching in the streets, who don't even know why they're marching, believe me, they don't. When I hear a 19-year-old on CNN, oh, I'm so oppressed. I'm so oppressed. I've got so many problems. Oppressed? 19 years old and you're oppressed? Now you're depressed and you need some mental health therapy. Folks, I'm telling you, they won't fight. They won't fight for our country because they're busy fighting against our country, and they have no idea what they're fighting against, but they do know what they're fighting for. They're fighting for socialist. They're fighting for communist. And if they weren't fighting for socialists and communists, then how on earth is it that the letters have gone out by the thousands to these people that starts with Dear Comrades? How is it that hammers and sickles and red are being sprayed all over the place and communist propaganda is being spread around the country, especially on social media? And folks, you ain't seen nothing yet. The information we have is going to be is astounding. I'll tell you what it is. They're going to launch, the socialists and communists are going to launch the most comprehensive virtual attack on this country that we've ever seen. And it's coming to a computer in your house. It's coming boldly. There's not going to be no Russian secret cells all over the place like we saw or heard about during the last presidential campaign. They're just coming. And they're coming not only virtually, they're going to be marching, and the red flags are going to be flying. Believe me, the information we're getting is bone chilling. But you know what's more bone chilling is that our elected officials on the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, the party of Reagan, the party of Trump, the elected officials, they're not going to respond. You know how I know that? Because they haven't responded yet. What's going to happen, as Tucker said the other night, what's going to happen when they come marching down your street? I talked to someone today, folks, someone today who just moved to the United States. He's going out and he's going to go get a gun. Going to go buy a long gun. He asked me what I thought of it. I said, no, don't go buy one, buy two. That's right, folks. People need to arm themselves. You need to protect your families. I thought I would never, ever, ever say that publicly. But what we are seeing demonstrated right now before our eyes is the police can no longer protect us. They can't, folks. Again, remember what I shared with you? I back up what I say with facts. So the fact is, have they protected the people in Seattle? No. Have they protected the people in New York City? 17. By the way, folks, 17 people. 17 more people shot. I believe it was on Father's Day weekend in New York City. Dozens shot in Chicago. Can the police protect you in Chicago? No. Los Angeles? No. So where on earth can the police protect us anymore? They can't, folks. Go buy yourself a weapon. Make sure you're trained. You go through all the safety training courses. And don't use it. Don't use it unless you feel your life is in imminent danger. Remember that. Don't use it unless you fear your life is in imminent danger. And learn what imminent danger is. Get an education. All these gun stores they've got, and the NRA, they have terrific training programs. Very good training programs. But don't wait, folks. I'm telling you, don't wait. Scary, isn't it? Darn right it's scary. But when I see police officers, and I'm not blaming the cops, I've said that all along. I spent 38 years in law enforcement, and I know how it is. But when you see police officers run and give up their police precinct by order of their commanders, by order of the cowards that are sitting in City Hall, no longer going to be able to protect us. We got to protect ourselves. So now I'm going to start getting messages. Oh, Lieutenant Rogers was on the air. A call to arms. That's what they're going to say. A call to arms. You're darn right, a call to arms. You're darn right. Because we still have a Second Amendment in this country, and you have a right to exercise your Second Amendment rights. But do it within the framework of the law. Make sure you do it within the framework of the law. Don't go crazy and start doing things you shouldn't be doing. One thing we don't want in this country is a civil war. We don't want a revolutionary war. We don't want that. But you have a right to protect yourself. God forbid it leads to that. But a warning to the silent Republicans and the silent conservative leaders of this country. You are going to be responsible for the bloodshed that may take place across this country by your utter silence. And in some cases, your outright cowardice to not stand up and speak words, perhaps like myself and others like me who have gone out there on the front lines and on national television and have spoken those words. Shame on you. Shame on you. There's a sin of commission, which the Democrat socialists are doing, and there's a sin of omission, which a lot of Republicans, sadly to say, are doing. So what are we going to do? Tell you what we've done, folks. Like I said, we weren't sitting around for months waiting for things to happen. We, meaning me and some pretty influential leaders of organizations around the country, are creating an American Patriot Conservative Coalition. That's right, an American Patriot Conservative Coalition. And we're asking people like yourself stand by and to wait for us to launch this thing. And we're going to ask you to join. And you're not going to be asked for money, no dues, none of that. We're going to ask you to join this so that we could show the Republican Party in particular and the Democrat Socialists that they're not going to be dealing with just a few dozen people. They're not going to be dealing with cowards that sit in City Hall or in the United States Congress, but they're going to be dealing directly with the American people as they did in the 1700s, folks, directly with the American people. Probably going to launch this in Florida when we get out there in August. We'll probably launch it before that. The American Patriot Conservative Coalition. And I'll have some of the leaders of this coalition that we're putting together on this broadcast when we start to roll. Because I don't expect to see a flag with an elephant on it, the symbol of the Republican Party, with the cavalry coming. I've given up on those people. But what I haven't given up on are the people who are standing by this president and by the very few leaders in the Republican Party who are standing up with him. I haven't given up on the American people, the spirit of the people of this great country. Now's the time to fight. And we're going to fight by doing exactly what they're going to be doing. I tell you that the communists and social, by the way, the reason why I'm talking a lot about communists, we got some information, and it's starting to come in that the Chinese Communist Party may very well be financing a lot of what we see today. It's a repeat of what the Soviet Union did during the Cold War. The Chinese Communist Party is beginning to do that now. So they're going to start their virtual campaign, and we're going to start ours. And that's how we're going to fight them. But we're going to need your help to spread the word. Think about this. This is supposed to be a 30-minute broadcast. I'm already 3 or 4 minutes over my time. But that's it, folks. I'm not going to break my word. But I'm going to be talking tomorrow night about the war on police continues. We got a lot more to talk to you about, this socialist agenda, where we're headed, where we're going. But I'm going to ask you to do this, folks, because there's a lot of information we're sending out. Please sign up for our newsletter. All right. It's free. We send it over the internet. We've got 10,000 or so sending out. Just mail. This is the email, mail@rogersforamerica.us. Mail, MAIL, at rogersforamerica.us. All right. Just email us. We're going to automatically put you on the list, and we're going to get this information to you. But more importantly, when we create and build it's a cool name, isn't it? American Patriot Conservative Coalition. When we put that together and we want you to be part of it, we're going to be a force to be dealt with. And you know who's going to have to deal with us? Not only the socialists and the communists, because I'll be going around the country, and we're beginning to travel in July, folks. I tell you, we're going to do what Reagan did in his time. We're going to go out and we're bringing the American people together to fight these Democrat socialists. But you know who's going to have to deal with us? The Republicans running for office. They're going to have to deal with us, because they're going to know that unless they stand up for our Constitution and for this flag, they stand up for what's right, and they stand up and they tell us, I want to hear them say that they're not ashamed to use the word God and country in the same sentence. I want to hear them say that. Then maybe they'll get our support. If not, I don't know what we're going to do, because we're caught between a rock and a hard place. But we'll figure it out. You know why I know we'll figure it out? Because we're Americans. We always figure it out. And as President Trump always says, we get into a fight to win. And win we will. That's it. It is it's like 6:39, I think. I'm going to get into trouble here. But thanks so much, folks. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. Please email me, mail@rogersforamerica.us. See you at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night. By the way, I'll be on Fox Business Network with Varney tomorrow around the 10 o'clock hour. One American News on Friday. I'll give you the exact time. And we'll be hopscotching all over the country. And we're going to come to a town or city near you. How about that, folks? Thank you. Now, 8 o'clock, all right? 8 o'clock, which is not too far from now. We're going to do a watch party on this broadcast. If you missed it, you know you could come on and watch at 8. Call your friends, neighbors, have them tune in. Thanks so much. God bless you. God bless America. God bless our president. And remember, never forget, Your purpose and my purpose at the end of the journey we walk on this earth is to love and to glorify God forever. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States. God bless our president.